Hey everyone, welcome back to the Sports Breakdown once again. So sorry guys, so we couldn't do the third 2020 review between Sri Lanka versus Zimbabwe because I couldn't follow it much. So I did watch the whole match back, and then I saw how they perform. I watched glimpses and bits and here, but I watched the full match yesterday, and now yeah, so I'm ready to analyze on that. I brought alongside Dominic Machado once again from the Murali End, a pivotal person for the Murali End and the Cricket Smash YouTube channel, as you know, as well. So they do content over there, but it's the Murali End podcast as well. Dominic, how are you doing? It's been a long time since you came to my channel, but I'm so happy to have you once again on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's great to be back, and I'm really excited to see that you're back covering cricket content just in time for what should be a really exciting Asia Cup.
Yeah, exactly. But coming into the third 2020, so Zimbabwe beat Sri Lanka in the second 2020 very convincingly, bowling Sri Lanka
Mhm.
all out for 80, and it was a really, really embarrassing match for Sri Lanka. But the way they fought back in the third 2020, Dominic, especially because I think Sri Lanka won the toss and chose to field first, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, in third. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, and then Zimbabwe put up 190, which really, really scared the freak out of even me. I was following the scores that time, and I was really freaking out when, honestly, like Zimbabwe scored 190. But your thoughts over how the first innings went, and especially a lot of changes. Though the Patirana got his first
Yeah.
match
Mhm.
in the
Mhm.
series. We had Dushan Hemantha performing really well, although his economy was a bit of
Yeah.
a concern, but still, Charlie Tasalanka was trying out every bowler possible. So your thoughts on
And
especially the first innings?
he should have taken another wicket. I think there was a I forget who it was. There was a pretty bad it was Camille Mashara actually had a really bad drop off of Himantha. He should have had four wickets. Um,
Yeah.
and a couple of things that stood out to me. Chamira coming in immediately and having an impact. Third ball he bowled, he gets the wicket of Brian Bennett. He was at the batters, he was aggressive. And I think in terms of the biggest positives for Sri Lanka to come out of this tour, it's the form of Dushmantha Chamira. He looks in top shape. He looks really good. He looks like he has a really good plan for T20 cricket. He's a guy you can use at every stage of the innings, which is really important for Sri Lanka in terms of balancing their bowling lineup. He's bowling fast. There were no speed guns, so we couldn't really see what it was, but he was troubling them. His Yorkers looked on point. That was really, really wonderful to see. Patirana was interesting because they gave him the first over, which was, and I thought actually Sri Lanka bowled quite well in the power play. Both Benura and Matisha Patirana were unfortunate to give up the number of runs that they did. There were a number of edges that actually went for four. So I thought they bowled quite well, but Zimbabwe really took advantage of that good start and pushed on. They didn't let anyone settle. None of the bowlers settle. I think one thing that we have to think about is the role that Benora is playing in the team. I think one of the reasons he's been put in the team is because generally he keeps a pretty good economy rate, but he went at 12s in this match, including bowling a no ball. And that becomes tough if you don't have someone like Mahesh Theekshana, who, again, right, keeps that economy rate down. Innings can get away from you. And
Yeah.
Zimbabwe, we know they have some good players, but against some of these teams we're going to be facing in the Asia Cup, we have to be very careful about that. You're not going to have 3 overs from Char Thessalanka only go for 19. If you're playing India, they are absolutely not going to allow that to happen. So for me, there was some good. The downside was the feeling. I already mentioned the drop by Camille Mashara, um, and I think there was one time where Benura Fernando was chasing down a ball and the Zimbabwe batters ran four. So for me, it was kind of dispiriting. I was very sort of surprised that Sri Lanka was able to put up such a fighting effort when they came back and bat because it seemed like their energy levels outside of Chimura and Hemantha were fairly low.
What do you think about Dushan Hemant's performance, especially because he sort of performs really well in domestic, I would say. Like he's
Mm,
the backup spinner, spinner to Hasaranga, and we are not sure about Hasaranga's fitness right now. I think he's in Dubai right now, but he hasn't started training yet, so really don't know what's going on
yeah.
with Hasaranga right now. But with Dushan Hemant, it's been a sort of like a very funny story to be honest, because his debut start, like his first 10 matches weren't good until
Mhm.
recently right now. And he was obviously his economy has been bad. He's not picking up that much wickets, and it's a huge concern, especially him being the backup bowler for Saranga. But we've seen improvements of Dushan Hemant over like the past month or so. So
Yeah.
your thoughts over his potential, like
Yeah.
in 2020?
Yeah. I think this was his debut series in 2020. He had not played a T20I prior to this, and he had played in the World Cup where he really struggled. Right, we saw that he played in that 2023 World Cup in the ODI World Cup as Hasaranga's replacement, and it was clear he really wasn't at that level yet. But I thought he bowled quite well. He gets good turn, right? Like he has a leg spinner that actually turns quite well. He's a great fielder, and if we think back to the first game, coming in at 8 is a good thing because he can absolutely hold a bat, and he can score runs. He scored the winning boundary, right, for in that first T20 match. So I was pleasantly surprised by how he bowled. He was more expensive in this match, but he took more wickets. And as I said, a bit of that is unluckiness. Like there was a catch dropped off his bowling, and then the next ball was hit for 4 in the final over. So he could have easily ended at 4 for 34 for 4, which would have made things look absolutely great. Um, he's one of those players that perhaps buys his wickets a little bit more, right? He relies on hole outs and things of that nature. So I thought he was good. I think he showed why he's in the squad because a lot of people, including myself, was asking where's Viaskant, but Hemantha really showed that he was a quality spinner, and it's really good to have him in the side. Obviously, I'd like to see Viaskant play a larger role in Sri Lanka setups going forward, but Hemantha, to my mind, showed why he is Hasaranga's backup. And obviously, and I'll say this again, and I don't think it can be said enough, Hasaranga is so important to this team. He fixes the balance. He's that wicket taker, that enforcer in the middle overs. He brings the attitude that's needed. So we're all hoping for Hasaranga to get back. But Hemantha, I'm more confident in Hemantha as a backup than I was before the start of this tour.
I've heard also in your previous shows that you're a huge fan of VS Kant, and I also don't know why the Sri Lankan selectors, so even Sanath is not considering VS Kant in the 2020 squad. Like he is in the IPL. I
Mhm.
know he had a bad IPL the last year, I think with SRH, so the previous year, but after that he didn't get the chances. But he's been performing in domestic and even in LPL. Yes, he didn't show his glimpses like how he performed in the previous seasons, but what do you really think about VS Khan? Do you think he deserves another go at the for Sri Lanka in 2020? So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think one of the tricky things is what are we using to evaluate these players? They had this three-team tournament, and VS Kant was one of the pick of the bowlers in that three-team SLC tournament. And then in the Major League T20 series, he was also very good. He can bat as well. He's a handy bat down the order, and he's young. I think that's another key part that, to my mind, is in his favor is that you can help him learn the ropes. And we've seen this with so many Sri Lankan players. Patham Nisanka being and Jarath Thessalanka being the most, sort of standout examples. If you give these guys opportunities at the international level to soak up the knowledge and mature slowly, you can help them to develop. And that second spinner role behind Wanindu Hasaranga is really important because Hasaranga gets injured. So this would have been a good, sort of 2-year run to give someone like Viaskanth a lot of repetitions, to give him time in the side, to hone his craft, to develop things at the international level, as opposed to one day sort of plummeting him out of the sky and saying, okay, it's your chance to come and make it, do your best job. But I think that's why bringing him along, professionalizing him, helping him to see what it takes to be a top level international cricketer, To me, it doesn't really make sense why he hasn't been traveling with those squads, or even with A teams, right? In these recent A team tours, he's been excluded from them as well. So I really don't understand what's going on.
Yeah. Do you think right now in 2020 cricket, do you think Mahesh Theekshana is a automatic option for Sri Lanka in the playing 11 right now? Because we see Mahesh Theekshana not picking up because now since Hasaranga is injured, we
Mm,
know usually Mahesh Theekshana's role is to like sort of slow down the runs, and that's his role. Like he doesn't have to pick up because that was
yeah,
the plan for Sri Lanka. Like Hasaranga picking up the wickets, and Theekshana all he does is to like conserve the runs, ensure that the batters are under pressure so that
yeah.
Hasaranga can go attacking in attack mode and try to pick up the wickets. So what sort of role is it for Theekshana now
Mm,
since Hasaranga is injured right now? And since he's not even performing right now, not picking up wickets, his economy has gone high, and
yeah,
his feeding has been horrendous also in the last few series, especially
yeah.
in that Bangladesh
Bangladesh
series.
series was
What are
very
your
bad.
thoughts? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
What are your thoughts on that?
yeah. I was I've been I was looking back to kind of see, okay, how has he performed? And yes, 2025 has not been a good year for Deekshana in T20s, right? But 24, 23, 22, he was very consistent and very good. I think part of that relates to the fact that um, and this is a larger critique of Sri Lanka's team planning, is that roles are ill defined. When in 23, 24, and 22, he was almost always opening the bowling or bowling in the power play for at least two of those overs. And he is really good in that situation because he's hard to get away. He's hard to sort of get under and plop over the infield. And so he was bowling really well in those circumstances. He can get that ball to swing a little bit as well. So he had a bit of a darter that he could use to take wickets. So because Sri Lanka have had more options up top with their bowling, Deekshana has been moved around a little bit. He hasn't been holding
Yeah,
that same position. And for me, I think that's where he brings the most value as a power play bowler, as a power play spin bowler who can kind of keep the runs down and pick the odd wicket for you and then come on wherever in the game you need him to. I think that's the other huge benefit to Deekshana is um he can bowl at the death. He can bowl in the middle overs. He can bowl in the power play, and that almost is a disadvantage for him personally, as much as it is an advantage to the team. Is that wherever the hole needs to be plugged, that's where you stick Deekshana in. I would like to see him play. I think on these UAE pitches, I think you need to play two spinners, and I do not think that Charitha Solanka and Kamindu Mendes are quite up to that level unless the pitch is really turning. The other thing that I've been thinking about a lot is how do we not just have a set 11, but how do we set an 11 that's a good matchup for the sides we're playing?
yeah.
Take Afghanistan, for example, right hander heavy. And if you look at the stats, they struggle against slow left arm bowling. So to me, that tells me, okay, how can we get Dunith Wilalage into the squad? How
Mm,
can we take advantage of this weakness? So I think Deekshana has a big role to play, and I think that role is in the power play. But I also think that all of Sri Lanka's bowlers, maybe with the exception of Chamira and Hasaranga, we need to just look at the opposing side and say, okay, well, what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses, and how can we actively exploit those to make the most of the resources? Because the problem we have is a problem not of lack of good bowlers, but too many. And we're trying
too
to
many
always
options.
find
Yeah,
that balance. So I would like to see kind of a curated game plan, right? If you're a big football fan, right? You match up the players to what you strategy you're going to use in that game. And you might have you know, five guys who play every game, but then you mix in different guys depending on what you need. And that's what I'd kind of like to see from the bowling attack is a bit more mixing and matching, a bit more thoughtfulness about, okay, on this kind of pitch, we're going to attack this way. Because I think Will Olligate is someone whose skill set we're not using as much,
yeah.
particularly as a power play bowler, right? Like if you want to put Patarana in a side, if you have spinners who can bowl in the power play, that is a huge, huge asset, right? We see that at CSK, right? That's why they had
Mm.
Krishna.
Yeah, exactly. I was speaking with Manush Kosa recently about, both Patirana and Tushara playing, and Patirana got his first match and he did,
Yeah.
I mean, he did fairly okay right now, but do you think like also Matisha Patirana can be in that playing 11 right now in the Sri Lankan team, or do we have to go in a variation in terms of fast bowlers? So we have Binura Fernando, that tall left arm
Mhm.
seamer. We have Anuan Tushara who has that slingy action, and then we have Chamir, obviously, who's spearheading that fast
Yeah.
bowling attack. So
Yeah.
how do you see we try to get that fast bowling combination? How do we sort that out? Because we have too
Yeah.
many options in that in terms of that as well.
Yeah. And that's the tricky part. And the part that makes it more difficult is they all have different skill sets, right? So Patirana is someone you want to bowl at the back end, whereas Tushara, right? They think that you think two slingers, right? They're going to be similar. Tushara is actually the opposite. I prefer him to bowl up front where he gets swing, and he really can land those Yorkers, and he's very effective in the early overs. So I think one of the questions is now playing three seamers brings up the team balance as well, right? That's the other
Yeah.
issue. Is like, and I this is just a personal opinion. I don't think they're going to do this. I would like to see
Yeah.
them go 5 with Hasaranga as number 7,
Okay.
um, because then you could have two spinners and three fast bowlers. The
All right.
problem is that a lot of our fast bowlers are not good batters, so that makes it difficult for us to sort of balance the side.
Yeah.
Um, like it would be ideal if we could go 7-4 and had a real, you know, sort of an all-rounder. But this is the interesting thing here is all-rounder. I think basically you're thinking about, um, can you find a way to play three fast bowlers? Because that's kind of what you need to actively fill out those 20 overs, right? You
Mm.
need someone at the top. You need Chamira, you can move around a bit, but Patarana, if you're going to play him, you have to bank basically
On his
4 of the
bowling.
last 10, right?
Yeah.
And if you have Hasaranga, you also know where his overs are going. So then
Yeah.
if that's kind of your building block, like if you want to play Patarana, you have to think about, okay, you have three bowlers who are going to definitely bowl. You have Patirana at the back end. You have Hasaranga through the middle. You have Chamira bowling wherever you need it, and then you need to fill that power play role. So you need someone like a Mahesh Deekshana or Dunith Walalage, both of whom can bowl in the power play, and you need an opening fast bowler who's someone who can be a threat to take wickets. I personally, the two guys I think are the one guy who's been statistically most effective in that role is Nuwan Tushara. Right, we saw what he
Okay.
did against Bangladesh. We saw how effective he is with the new ball in his hand. The other guy who's super effective is not in the squad, Dilshan Madhushanka. I think he's a
Yeah.
guy you could really just sort of bank on and say, all right, let's give me 3 good overs up top, keep it tight, and take a big wicket. That's all we want. Um,
Mm.
but that's the trouble for me is finding that opening bowler combination. Um, the way they've handled it in the past, they've given Chamaka Karunaratne some overs, but I don't think they're particularly keen on playing him this time.
Yeah.
Shanika can
Yeah.
pitch in, but he's more of a middle overs, death overs kind of
That
guy.
those kind of
Yeah,
bowler. Yeah.
which is fine, but they already have. That's why it becomes hard with Patirana in the side. So there's the balance question, and I think what you might want to say, or at least the different ways of approaching it, is okay. Patarana solves the death problem. Hasaranga solves the middle over problem. Chamira, you can move around. He'll bowl at the death. He'll bowl up front. Um, so who is going to
And then you
be
have
the top?
Tushara.
Yeah, that would be my kind of thought. I would prefer Tushara.
Tushara. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd
Definitely.
say you can give him 3 overs up top, and then you don't really need much more from him. You need 1 over somewhere, and then
But
if
the
you can,
only issue with Tushara for me is like his consistency in the power
mm,
play. Like, yes, he might perform against Bangladesh or something, but my problem with Tushar is his consistency, especially
yeah,
because in some matches he could give you runs and that could be the end of the match. Like, especially in the
yeah,
power play, like 1 over he could concede like maybe 15 or 20
yeah.
runs, and that could be the end of the match if that's my whole issue of Tushar, and this is the reason why I really don't understand why they selected Binura Fernando over Dilshan Madhushanka.
Yeah,
For me, I really think like Dilshan Madhushanka should have been in this Asia Cup squad,
yeah,
but I just don't know because of obviously Dilshan Madhushanka not performing that domestic tournament, and Binura Fernando did, so they preferred Binura over Dilshan
yeah,
Madhushanka over that, but Dilshan Madhushanka really did well in that ODI series
yeah,
against Zimbabwe, so I really don't understand how Madhushanka missed out on the
yeah.
Asia Cup squad, in my
And
opinion.
we all remember what he did last Asia Cup, right? That
Yeah,
was
yeah,
brilliant, right? And I think sometimes we forget how important wickets are in T20 cricket, right? It's okay if Madhushanka, again, the critique of him would be, as you said with Tushar, maybe he might go for a lot of runs, but if he gets you a wicket, that changes everything. Yeah, so I
yeah,
think that's the tricky part is if you're playing Patirana, you have to manage the opening bowling. If you don't play him, you definitely lose something at the back end because Tuchara can be had at the back end. Benura Fernando can be had at the back end,
yeah,
um, and so it's a tricky balance. It also will depend on what the pitches are doing because I think the what Sri Lanka might optimally like to do is play three spinners
mm,
and have Chimera and Patirana to kind of shut things down at the end.
yeah, absolutely. Don't you think Dom like Velalage can bat at number 7 to be honest and push Hasaranga to number 8? Because I've seen like his batting
Yeah.
capabilities. Like Velalage has been really good, especially in ODI cricket. We have seen like Velalage has been, performing, scoring half centuries. I mean, he's a more consistent batter than Hasananga, to be honest. Like he has shown in the under 19 World Cup as well the potential
Yeah.
he has with that in the bat also, and there's no question marks. I don't doubt on Hasananga's batting or whatever. He has that, but
Yeah.
it's just his consistency has not been really great. And
Yeah.
Velalage, to be honest, he's a potential batter, but he's been focusing more on his bowling in the
Yeah.
past few years, especially being in the international, like in the Sri Lankan team. He has been focusing more on the bowling, but he hasn't been focusing much on his batting. So, your thoughts on that? On
Yeah.
Velalage batting maybe at 7?
Yeah. I think I saw it suggested today while we were potting on Murali, and someone said switching in Will Alligay to for Thikshana lengthens the batting, and you might not get that much different in terms of results. Um, I'm not sure I totally agree with can we say that they're like complete light for like in the T20 format because you have a very proven commodity in Thikshana. But I think the problem is right now we're playing with 7 batters. We're playing with Nisanka and Mendes, Mishara and Kusal Pereira, Charitha Salanka, Dasan Shanaka, and then Kamindu Mendes at 7. So that I don't disagree with you that Will Alligay at 7 would be a good fulcrum there, but that would probably require dropping somebody from the top 7, and the attitude seems to be a little bit fearful of collapse because of all the middle order collapses we've had, and they want to play those 7 batters as a protection against that. I also think a benefit of having Walalage and Hasaranga is they do different things. So Hasaranga, right now we have a bunch of left-handers in the middle order. So he could be someone you bring up against an off-break bowler to kind of disrupt the timing and to stop the left hand combination because uh, I think both Asalanka and Kamindu have weaknesses against off spin. KJP less so because he plays the reverse sweep so much.
Yeah,
Um, so he could be a someone that you just bump up a spot or two. And Will Alligay, again, strong performer with the bat, and he can, you know, hang around and keep an innings together. He's shown some power off the fast bowlers as well. So I
yeah,
think that's a strong option if they really are committed, it's just are they really committed to playing 7 batters with Charith Shanaka and Kamindu Mendes being the fifth bowling option, it becomes very hard for I guess then Wilalage would be 8 and Hasaranga would be 9 or whatever order you want to put them in.
Yeah.
But then you'd only play with 2 fast bowlers plus Dawson, which I think maybe you can get away with in the UAE, to be honest.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Just got a comment from Nikhil here. He's saying, "Oh yeah, you happy that the US men's team won tonight?"
Yeah, I saw they won 2-0. They've been having a rough go of it. I mean, it's been really bad, but they were able to sneak in a win. Um, it's strange because we've been promised for years that this was the golden era of American football, but not so not so much. They've really been struggling. So hopefully they'll be able to pull it together for our home World Cup.
Yeah. But coming back to the match, like the third 2020, your thoughts on Kamil Mishar, especially because I think I remember 2 years ago he got a suspension from Sri Lanka cricket with
Mm,
his behavior and the way that he's come back, especially because last in the second 2020, people were questioning of his intention of playing because I had a chat with another guest and then he said like what was the intention of Kamil Mishar in that 2020 match, the way that he was like the shots that he was playing, and it was all, he was lofting the shots. He had no control with his shots, and
yeah,
he was questioning Kamil Mishara being the playing 11 of the 2020, really. But the way that he batted in the third 2020, to be honest, that was just a mature knock, I would feel. That is the
yeah,
sort of knock that we want, and we haven't seen a number 3, number 4 for Sri Lanka carrying the team home in a
yeah,
2020 match for so long. It's been the openers who's been
yeah,
obviously controlling the batting of this team. It's
yeah.
good to see the number 3, number 4 performing.
Put in, yeah.
So your thoughts on Kamil Mishara's knock, the 73 of 43?
Yeah, it was impressive. I thought the intent, as you said, was the impressive part. He didn't back down. I think one of the things that we've seen happen, particularly after Nisanka and Mendes get out, is that there's a grind to a halt. There's a tendency to eat up dot balls and kind of consolidate rather than continuing in the mode that Mendes and Nisanka had and saying, all right, let's go and press the accelerator a little bit. Because what's the point of carrying 7 batters if you're not going to use it to be aggressive? Otherwise, play
Yeah,
6 batters and play the extra bowler, right? Because I think that's got to be the mentality. If you're going to bat deep, you take your chances. There's only 120 balls in an innings, and if you get out, it's better to get out like 1 from 3 than it is to get out, 10 from 17. So I was glad to see that intent and say, let's get on with it. Let's get the runs. And they played to win. Mishara was there to win the game. He wasn't there to take it to the last over. He was there to win the game. And seeing that mentality was really, really refreshing. I thought anything that was wide or short, he just latched onto and smashed. He played some good straight drives down the ground. So I was very impressed overall by his package, what he brought to the game. I'm eager to see what he does in the Asia Cup. He's obviously a very talented player that we've pointed to. He could be a guy who you might want to open in the future in ODIs with, right? Someone like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
And he's got the shots. He's a classy looking batter. He's scored a ton of runs in A tours. So I'm glad to see him performing. Glad to see him grasping the opportunity with both hands. It's interesting because I think we came into this tour thinking that Nuanindo Fernando was going to be kind of that solution to the middle order conundrum, but Mishara put his hand up, and good on him for doing that. I have to say that lofted shot he hit down the ground for 6 was an absolute beauty, and I'm excited to see him do that. I'm curious. I think that if there's one critique, and this is a small one, he looks more comfortable against pace than he does against spin.
yeah, absolutely. But do you think like he has obviously taken that number 3 spot for Sri Lanka right now in 2020, and Kusal Perera should bat at 4? How do you see like the number
Mm.
3, number 4 spots
Yeah,
for Sri Lanka going into the Asia Cup right now?
yeah. I think you got to stick with this, right? He's put up a 73. He's shown that he can bat. I think he's a good fit inside the power play. Just from the range of shots we saw, that he would definitely be comfortable coming in that position. I think it also gives Kusal Pereira a little bit of freedom. Having a number three scoring means that he can come in and play his own game, and especially a number three playing aggressively. I found that KJP tends to play best, especially in T20s, when he has a partner who is aggressing, because then he gets in, it gives him a minute to get into his game, and then he starts aggressing, and it becomes a handful. So against
Yeah.
New Zealand, I think when he scored that 100 earlier this year, Pathum Nissanka was having a great innings, and then KJP just kind of latched onto that and went from strength to strength. I also like, and as I mentioned earlier, I was doing some digging on this. Um, I like KJP at 4 because he doesn't have the usual left-hander's weakness to off-break bowling that Charith and Kamindu do. So he kind of, if you're going to bring in a few left-handers in a row, that's okay. But and I'll flag this for listeners. Bangladesh has, I think, quite a few off spinners in its ranks for the Asia Cup, so it'll be really important for one of Mendes, Pereira, or Nissanka to carry on, so that we don't get bogged down in the middle overs by that off spin threat.
Yeah, the only issue over here is like, especially with those options, I've also noticed like 3, 4, 5, 6 is going to be
Yeah,
left-handers, and that's could be a problem. But although in UAE, if I'm not mistaken, back in 2022, number 3, number 4, number 5 were left-handers.
yeah,
Dhanush Gunatilaka, Bhanuka
Chara,
Rajapaksa, and Charita Salanka.
yeah,
And now
yeah,
we have 3, 4, 5, 6 all
yeah,
left-handers right now until Kamindu.
yeah,
So
and
where do
you
you
can,
see that going on, especially against
yeah,
Afghanistan, Bangladesh, against the spinners? We have the likes of Rashid Khan, Noor Ahmad for
yeah,
Afghanistan, even Ghasemfar, and then for Bangladesh you have
mhm,
Mahdi Hassan, and all these spinners for
yeah.
Bangladesh. Your thoughts over that?
Yeah, I think that's where Pathum Nissanka and Kusal Mendes are going to be huge. So if one of those guys can kick on, right, and not just get a good start, but get a big score, that'll be huge, because both of them are very good players of off spin, and once they're set, they're very devastating against spin as well. I think very few players play Rashid Khan as well as Kusal Mendes does. He's really put him under the pump over the last few years. So seeing those two guys be able to take it deep in these games, especially against the spinners, so that whoever's at the other end can kind of play aggressively, is going to be key. I think the other option you have is that you move up one into Hasarunga, especially against off spin heavy team, to kind of provide that right hand option somewhere in the middle. So I think there are options or approaches that you can use to get around that spin problem. I
Yeah,
think, yeah, I think you need to think about who is, because I would say both Charith and Kamindu definitely like pace on the ball,
yeah,
and
definitely.
yeah, and Shanika as well. So those are the guys you want coming in later in the innings. Or if someone like Charles comes in, you want him playing with someone who can handle the spin fairly easily.
Absolutely. But it's good that we found this combination, especially in the Zimbabwe series, at least in the last 20 weeks, sort of
Yeah,
got the combination ahead of Asia Cup. And especially the number 3 and number 4 was a
yeah,
huge headache
yeah,
before coming into the Asia Cup. And now I think we sort of sorted it out with Kamil Mishara and Kusal Pereira. I hope both of them perform. And Kusal Pereira has proven all the critics wrong now, especially with
yeah,
that 46 of 26. He got a lot of criticism in social media. And I kind of try to back Kusal Pereira as much as possible, because I know the potential this cricketer
yeah.
has. Kusal Pereira, to be honest, doesn't matter whatever, like it happens like a rough patch of form. Like it happens even to Surya Kumar. It happens to any cricketer, and it happens
And in
last three
T20
ODI
cricket,
scores. Yeah,
and
yeah,
especially in T20 cricket, because the expectation should not be to score every match. That isn't what it is. But I think what brings it into focus is because we have these consistent middle order failures. All we really need is for two guys to kind of have a big contribution from that 3 to 8 slot. But what we need over the course of the tournament is for all of them to have a couple matches where they really come good. And I think that's one thing that I tweeted this out, that because of the strength of Mendes and Nissanka, and because of the strength of the bowling lineup, if we can get basically what we got in 2022 Asia Cup, where we got those, everyone kind of performed a little bit. There was the Bonica games, the Shanika games. 3 and 4 really didn't do that much, but
Yeah, yeah,
but even Danijaya de Silva had a couple good matches, right? If we can get a
yeah.
couple good performances from each of those guys, that will really help us, because I think for the first time in a long time, we have a consistent opening pair who puts pressure on the opposition. And we just need a couple guys there to fire every match to keep that pressure up.
Mm, exactly. What do you say of the role of Charita Salanka? Yes, I know
Mm.
his form is a bit concerning. He's the leader of the team, so obviously he's going to be under pressure now coming into the Asia Cup, especially with his batting form right now. In ODIs, there's no question he's in the
Yeah.
best form of his life, but in 2020s, he hasn't really proven his consistency in 2020, and people are sort of doubting his sort of potential in 2020, but he's still the captain and he's still leading this team. So your thoughts, like, on Charita Salanki in this Asia Cup, because he's coming under a huge cloud of coming under a lot of pressure for sure of his batting for sure, and he has to
Mm.
obviously perform right now. But your thoughts over that?
I think I have no doubts about his potential as a T20 player. I think he's going to be very good for a very long time. I think he's really developed his power game. I think his six hitting ability has tremendously improved, and he's particularly tailored that to bat at five. I think
Yeah,
we have to put him in those positions where he's allowed to unleash his potential as that number five, as opposed to coming in the seventh, eighth over, and he's got to play a sort of more muted type of game because he doesn't have the time that he does in an ODI to kind of expand. So what I'd like to see is I'd like to see that entry point for Charith be the 13th, 14th, 15th over. And have him take on the fast bowlers, because he's not a tall guy, but that makes his pull shot very effective. He,
yeah,
particularly against wrist spinners and slow left armers, he's very effective. So if
yeah.
you can kind of allow him to be that finisher that he's done, that finisher role, I think that'll be
Mm.
really good. And that's kind of dependent on those top four getting a good amount of runs so that he can come in and kind of put the icing on the cake, as it were.
Yeah, because like his strike rate is a bit concerning, being as a number five batter, like 126, especially in 2020s. I
Yeah,
think as a number five batter, that is not good. You need to have a strike rate of over 130, at least 135, 140, to be honest. Like same with Kamindo, I would say, but Kamindo has just started to play as that
yeah,
finisher role right now at number six. So you can't really question on Kamindo Mendes because all this time he's been batting at number four, and then in the IPL only he was tested to bat at number six, and now Sri Lanka cricket also has realized, yes, Kamindo has been also been focused with SRH to bat at number six. This is the role we've given you, and you have to play as a finisher. And he did that quite well with the matches that he got until he got injured. He did that role quite efficiently
yeah,
until he got injured. And Sri Lanka cricket really didn't realize that until this Zimbabwe series or even the Bangladesh series. Then only they realized, yes, Kamindo is not a number four batter anymore. We need to play him at number
yeah,
six. We don't have finishers. We need to obviously give Kamindo Mendes the role that he's comfortable with and bat him at number six. And
yeah,
that's where I think Dasun Shanaka also will feel more confident also when you have a player like Kamindo Mendes also
yeah,
performing at that role as well as a finisher, and they could even rotate,
yeah,
like swap also. Like if you have four left-handers from number three to six, then sometimes if they're taking wickets, quick wickets, you can bring in a Shanak at number six and then
yeah.
push Kamindo Mendes to number seven. So your thoughts over that as well?
Yeah, so just to give you some numbers, right? So Chartha Salanka since 2023 against pace, okay, his strike rate has been 148, which is excellent, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And he, in the power play over, or sorry, in the late middle overs and the slog overs, he has a true
Yeah.
strike rate, which means better than average of 27, right? So he's batting
Yeah.
27, he's getting 27. And the thing that he does best is he hits sixes quite
Mm.
well. So he has been really good against pace, particularly in that like 12 to 20 spot. Spin,
Yep.
he is where he struggles a little bit, particularly in the earlier phase of the inning. So what we want to do
Yep.
is we want to bring him in that spot where he's going to be facing pace, where he has time to tee off and hit those sixes, because he's one of those guys that have power, that has
Mm.
power. I think it'll be interesting to see how they manage that batting order, because let's just say, the fourth wicket falls in the 16th over. To my mind, the guy you want to bring in there is Dustin Shanika. You want to get him in, let him see a few balls, and then tee off right ahead
Yep.
of Kamindu Mendes. So I think that's one of the tricky parts, is what role does Kamindu play in this side? And obviously there's a big role for him to play. We saw that in the first match against Zimbabwe. But how flexible are Sri Lanka going to be when it comes to that batting order? Because I think that we talked about this with the bowling, where Sri Lanka misses a trick is not using its resources fully. Is that we
Mm.
have players who can do different things, but we're not
Yep.
using them that way. So, are we going to see Hasaranga as a floater? Are we going to see Dawson promoted ahead of Kamindu at times? Because there was a time, when we were in 2012, 2013, 2014, where we would do that all the time. Wicket falls at like the 30th over in ODIs, we send in Thesara Pereira. In the World Cup final in 2014, we sent up
Yep.
Thesara, right? We sent up Nuran Kulasekara in 2011,
Yep.
right? It's I want to see that kind of careful thinking about, okay, what does this situation demand, and who's the right guy for this right now?
Do you think like the head coaches, like in the past 5 years, do you think like even after 2014, do you think they've taken sort of like the wrong risk in terms of like players, like in sort of like I know like Hasaranga was being given as a floating option, and
Yeah,
then yes, he
at
was very
four.
effective in certain matches, but in certain matches he failed as well. Yes, against Ireland, in the 2021
Yeah,
qualifiers, he was very effective, and even in the Asia Cup, he was effective. But the other chances, he really
yeah.
wasn't that effective. So, like, do you think like at certain scenarios they take the wrong sort of risk with players, like compared to before, like every option that we took as a risk, it actually worked for Sri
It
Lanka
came
cricket. But
off,
right now
right?
it came off, but now it's sort of like a gamble whether it can work or not, but sometimes it doesn't work right now. And that could be because of how cricketers are sort of like analyzing the other teams, sort of like analyze, and they
Yeah,
sort of know what Sri Lanka have, that potential, like they know the hidden strengths that Sri Lanka have. So your
yeah.
thoughts on that?
I think it's a tricky situation, because I think all the other teams are doing those kind of things. So we're less likely, because of the data analysis, to pull one over on someone. But I think part of what data analysis shows is that it's only a gamble if you do it inconsistently. If you use the same metric to make decisions all the time, then you're more likely to have success. If you're going to say, all right, we see Hasaranga as our spin hitter, we like his entry point at the 10th over. If a wicket falls around, then that, to me, right, like if that's a database decision, you back it and you say, this is what we go with. Or if you
Yep.
say, okay, Dawson, he is our death hitter, we want his entry point 15th over or later, right?
Yep.
Obviously, sometimes you can't do that, but um, what roles you have for these guys is really important to doing that. And that's where I think the analysis has to be sharper, is what do these guys do well? Where do we want them to, where can we put them in a position to do what they can, to do the best job that they can and maximize their skills? So to me, it's less about the gamble and more about, okay, this is a calculated risk that we're taking, and it may not pay off this game, and that's okay. But this is the philosophy we built behind it, and we're going to stick to it because we believe that over the long run, that is going to pay off and bring wins to Sri Lanka cricket, as opposed to, okay, let's take the shot in this game and then it doesn't come off and they never try it again.
Yeah, exactly. Dom, coming back like to the batting aspect, like do you think like the power hitting, like the finishing options for Sri Lanka, the number six, number seven, is that the biggest headache for Sri Lanka right now? For many years, I think that was sort of like the huge problem right now. But do you think like it's still a problem for Sri Lanka in terms of like finishing 2020 matches or even in the first innings trying to get to that 170, 180, but they're still stuck and they're not being consistent and Sri Lanka end up scoring 130, 140. Do you think that
Yeah.
is the biggest issue for Sri Lanka right now?
So I was chatting with Mark about this, and we are talking about ODIs actually. But I think one thing that you have to do is you have to see what your strengths are, and where you can score your runs. So we know that there's a relative lack of power hitting in Sri Lanka. We don't have Tim Davids, we don't have Mitch Marshes, we don't have huge guys who can just smack sixes everywhere,
Yeah,
right? And we know that we don't have the players who can just go from ball one and hit sixes, right? That's a attribute other nations have, right?
yeah,
So what we have to do is we kind of have to work backwards and say, okay, if we want to get to 170 and we can't expect 10 and over from the last 10, what can we reasonably expect? Okay, maybe we can expect 8.5. So then that tells you in that first 10, you have to get 8.5. So I think
yeah,
what it means is you might have to construct your innings differently. You might have to be okay with um, Kusal and Potham playing higher risk cricket to get you that, to take advantage of that power play, to go at 11, 12 and over, to give you that cushion that even if there is a little bit of a letdown and they can't finish the way that you want, you still end up with a decent score. So I think
yeah,
for me, it's understanding the resources you have and thinking about, well, if we're constructing an innings to get to this score, and we can't expect to flourish at the back end, where can we get those runs? And it
mm,
might be something even as simple as, okay, we've noticed that we're going at 7.5 between overs 10 and 13, but we're
yeah,
playing a lot of dots during that time. So can we
yeah,
do something to increase our strike rotation so that we can take that 7.5 and over and make it 8.5?
yeah,
So it's got to be a collective effort. And if you have seven batters, I think it should be a collective effort. You should be after. And
mm,
it just means that rather than having the graph of your strike rate be flat and then go up at the end, it just means you got to hold it steady for the whole innings.
yeah. Because I'm just checking the stats of like Shanaka and all, and it's concerning, like especially in the 2020 World Cup next year, and because it's in Sri Lanka. I was just checking both Asalanka's and Shanaka's stats, especially their strike rate. It's really concerning. So Shanaka's at home, 33 matches, and his strike rate is just 116, and
Mm,
that is just not acceptable. His average is 15, whereas in a way his stats are really good.
right.
So
We
there's a
saw what
big
he did in
bit of
India, right? Um,
yeah, yeah,
and I think Shanika is a tricky player because obviously the skill set is there. I mean, how many
yeah,
guys? I was showing this to my 7-year-old son. 59 off of the last 3 overs, and he can just smash, Josh Hazelwood for
yeah,
25 runs in an over. So
yeah,
he's one of those guys who has that rare ability to hit for power, and I think he's been a guy who's been mismanaged and put in spots where he's not really encouraged to do what his skill set asks, it should ask him to do, right?
yeah,
Because he should be a guy who should be batting at 150, 160 consistently. And when he plays
yeah,
his best, like the last Asia Cup, right, that's what he was doing. So that to me is, yeah, it is a concern. I mean, we will have to talk about closer to the time what the pitches are going to look like in
yeah,
Sri Lanka for this World Cup, because part of me thinks that they're not going to be 220 is not going to be par. I think it's going to be more like 150, 160.
160. Yeah,
Yeah. And that changes the math a lot. And I think, again, you think about how do you use those resources? Where, how can you take advantage of that power play to get something out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Dom, coming into the Bangladesh match of the Asia Cup, how do you see that happening, especially because Sri Lanka lost the 2020 series to Bangladesh 2-1, and it's not been a good sort of I think Bangladesh also has improved in the last year. To be
Yeah.
honest, I've been speaking to Jared Kimber yesterday, and even he said like Bangladesh has improved, especially in 2020s. They've improved
Yeah.
under Litton Das in the past,
Mentality
and we
has
shouldn't
shifted.
underestimate.
Yeah.
Yeah, the mentality has changed. They've beaten both Sri Lanka and Pakistan. Yes, last year they lost to both USA and UAE, but I think under Litton Das, I think there is a different sort of direction with Bangladesh, and they're sort of like the players are motivated at the moment to perform. So, how do you see this match with Bangladesh gonna go, Mark? Because I don't think we can. Sorry, Dom, because we cannot underestimate Bangladesh, to be honest, with their potential as well. Your
Mhm.
thoughts, especially because Sri Lanka versus Bangladesh, it's always happening. They've always been playing. So Bangladesh
Yeah.
does know the strengths of weaknesses of Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka also does know the weaknesses of Bangladesh, but to be honest, like it's very close between both the teams right
Yeah.
now.
I 100% agree. I think, the last 6 matches, T20 matches, I think no, they are, Bangladesh has won the last 7. I think Bangladesh has won 4 and we've won 3. We
Yeah,
won one series in Bangladesh before the World Cup. We lost to them at the World Cup, and
yeah,
then we lost this series. So, and I think it's a very closely run competition. I think as you said very rightly, we play each other so much that there's no surprises. There's nothing that is going to happen that's going to surprise either team, and it's going to be
yeah,
who shows up on that day. I think the Sri Lankan middle order collapses were absolutely crushing in all 3 matches, even the one they won. So that's going to be a big issue. How do they handle the Bangladeshi spinners? I think what historically has been the case is if Potham or Kosal make a big one, that puts Sri Lanka in a really good position. Um, and I think it's going to be dislodged, and Bangladesh bat deep. That's another thing that is concerning, is that they bat deeper than we do. I think we have
yeah,
more. I think our bowling is slightly higher quality. I think we have a little bit more variety in our bowling. I think our openers are stronger, but it's basically those middle overs is what's going to tell the game for me, is what we do against their spinners in the middle overs and how our spinners and fast bowlers control the games against the likes of Litton Das and Tawid Ridoy and Shamim Hussein and Jaker Ali, because all those guys at some point have taken a game away from us. So those are the guys I'm worried about.
yeah. Absolutely. How do you
And
see it
and
going though, Dom? Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I was gonna
Continue.
say
Sorry.
the trump card I think here, um, I think is Junith Well because of these teams know each other very well. They've seen a lot of Thikshana, they've seen a lot of Hasaranga,
Awesome.
they've
Yeah,
seen Tushara, Patarana. Well,
yeah.
has not played much against them, and
Mm,
you know, um, they are a little bit right hand heavy in the middle. So
yeah,
a number of those right hand batters, and I've been looking at the numbers, are weak against slow left arm. So
yeah,
I would see that as a potential strategy to employ. Okay, this is not something that they're expecting. They're probably not expecting Dunith Walalage to play, and he could be a difference maker. That's my little like. If I was in Sri Lanka's camp, I'd say this is an opportunity to maybe spring a surprise based on data that can maybe win us the game.
mm, absolutely. How do you see it going, Dom, like predictions wise? Like it's
Yeah,
tough at the moment, but how do you see it going? Like
I think
your thoughts on
they've
it? Yeah,
gotten the last 2 over on us at the past 2 World Cups. They got this series. I think Sri Lanka will be out for blood. I think one of Kusal and Patham will have a big innings, and I think Sri Lanka will win it.
okay, that's good positive news, and especially I think it could happen, especially in UAE conditions. I think Sri Lanka are really good, especially that's why no one's sort of like underestimating Sri Lanka this
Yeah.
time because they have won the Asia Cup last time in the UAE conditions, and
Yeah.
it's a very experienced team going into the Asia Cup. Apart from Camille Mishara, Nuaindo Fernando, I would
Mhm.
say even maybe even a Camilo Mendes. So it's just only like maybe two or three cricketers that haven't played at all,
Yeah.
and all the others have played in that Asia Cup 2022. So it's
Yeah.
a experienced core team,
Yeah.
and I just hope like Hasaranga is there, like he's a pivotal player at the
Yeah.
moment. I don't know the news. But I checked from Newswire last time. He said he's in the flight in Dubai right now. He hasn't started training, but I think he should be good to go for that Bangladesh match in 3 days. So
Yeah.
it's a bit of a positive news, but I really don't know what can
Yeah.
happen in the last couple of
They'll keep it.
hours or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's gonna. But I think that's where we need to have the backup, and I think that's where Velalage should step up in case
Yeah.
if Hasaranga doesn't play that match. I think still we can go with Dunit
Yeah.
again, probably either Tikshan or Hemanta
Yeah.
in that playing 11.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
but what would be your three spinners? I would feel, in my opinion, I will rather go with Velalage, and I would rest Hasaranga. If he's not 100%, I wouldn't risk it with Hasaranga because he
Mhm.
would be important in the later matches going on
Yeah.
right now. And yes, I know it's a crucial match against Bangladesh. It's a do or die, but still, I think we still have the spinning options. We still have Hemanta, who's in good form right now. Coming
Mm.
in the coming to the Asia Cup, I think I have faith in Hemanta right now with how he's been
And they
performing in
haven't really
Zimbabwe, and
seen.
it's been, yeah, which they haven't even seen Bangladesh. So I think he
Yeah.
could. Yes, his economy is a slight concern, but still, I think if he can pick up those
Yeah.
wickets, and even if his economy is high, that wouldn't be a problem as long as he picks up the wickets.
Yeah.
And if Velalage can support Hemanta, and
Yeah.
both of them can come into that combination and pick up wickets, then I don't see a reason why we need to risk Hasaranga right now. We can keep
Mhm.
him for the latter half of the tournament. But your thoughts on that?
Tricky because I do think I think you're right. It's a do or die game. It's winning this match will give us a lot of information, right? So say we win and there's a chance that the Afghanistan game doesn't matter if we beat Hong Kong, and if Bangladesh loses to Afghanistan, we're already through, right?
Yeah,
Um, I think Hasaranga will want to play because I think this is a big, this is a big rivalry for a big rivalry game for Sri Lanka. So they'll want to get up and really play hard. But I think you're right that there is bowling depth there, even without Hasaranga to do the job. Of course, if he's healthy, I would love him to play.
yeah,
You're either healthy enough to play or you're not. That's kind of my opinion is that if there's any injury risk, they should not play him. But if he's fit and ready, go for it and let him do what he does best. He always has these amazing games when he turns up after an injury. I think he took 7 for against Zimbabwe. He had another amazing comeback. He loves a good comeback.
yeah. What will be your three spin options? Will Tichana be dropped most likely for the Bangladesh match, or how do
I'd
you
like to
see
see.
this going on?
I want to see what the pitches are doing because depending on what they think the strengths and weaknesses are, they may say, okay, we feel okay with Kamindu and Charith taking some overs here.
But do you think
I
that's
would
like a
also,
huge gamble? Do you think that's a huge risk though, especially bowling both? Because Kamindo didn't bowl much in the Zimbabwe series.
which is kind of
Charlie, yes,
strange. But
yeah.
he bowled a decent amount in the ODI part of that.
ODI, see,
Yeah,
exactly.
but
Yeah,
not in the T20 series, which I don't really understand because I think he's actually a better matchup in the T20 series because you
yeah,
might only need to bowl him an over or two.
exactly.
I think it'll depend. There's a couple things that it'll depend on. As much as Bangladesh won the last series, they never really had a massive batting performance against
Mm,
us. So I think our
mm,
bowling is still good, um, and I think they do have a lot of options. Right, you can go with Dawson Shanika if you want to go with that. And I think we have to see what the pitches are doing, how much turn they're taking, what, whether it's a bat first pitch or a bat second pitch, because I think there's a huge advantage for Sri Lanka as a chasing side. They tend to do much better as a chasing side than they do setting scores.
Yeah,
So I think there's a lot of different things, and then dew may potentially be a factor if you're, I think that's something that we may also have to pay attention to if
pay
there is a
attention.
dew factor. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Dom. Thank you so much once again for joining in. It was a really good conversation, by the way, for this review. And yeah, hope to see you in some Asia Cup videos if I
Yeah,
manage to find some time
absolutely. Yeah.
to do. Let's crack in and do some Asia Cup videos as well, and try to cover all the Sri Lankan matches and hopefully even other nations as well with how they perform as well. Let's see how that goes. And yeah, all the best for the Murali End as well. I hope you guys are doing a great job, by the way, you and Mark. I've always told, and yeah, Cricket Smash YouTube channel, and guys are doing a wonderful job. And it's good to see so many views, and it's probably like the best YouTube channel going on in terms of like Sri Lanka cricket. So I think you and Mark are doing a phenomenal job. So keep
Thanks,
it up,
Colin.
I would say.
And
Yeah,
I love coming on your show, so I'm excited for more chats as long as we can make this, because I think the viewers don't understand. We're like 16 and a half hours, like 14 and a half hours different in terms of time. It's very
yeah,
it's
very
night here.
difficult. Yeah.
It's
And
morning for
it's
you.
afternoon. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
afternoon.
afternoon
Oh my
right now.
God. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very difficult. Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think the viewers will understand and they watch the videos later. So there's nothing
Yeah.
to worry. It's the same with the previous video I did with Bharat Sundaresan as well. It was not much viewers, but people are watching later on. So that's how it goes usually, the algorithm. But yeah, thank you so much once again. And do subscribe to Sports Breakdown, like, comment, and share. And also do subscribe to the Cricket Smash and do listen to the Murali End podcast also on Spotify, Apple, and all the streaming platforms that they have. Please do give a follow and do subscribe. So thank you so much, guys, and do come stick to our video. And yeah, maybe I'll do a small watch along or something of UAE versus India. Let's see on that. But until then, thank you so much, guys, and see you in the next video.